with our Bhakti Shastri course, and tonight we will read through verses 8 and 9 of the Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, the Upadesh Amrita. So if you have any questions or any comments, then please ask. So I'll begin with text number 8. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braj, Goloka Vrindavan, Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So if we look at the context of this particular verse, in the context of the whole book, the book only has 11 verses, so it is called Upadeshamrita, which means it's a concise summary or compilation of verses by Rupa Goswami in regards of taking us from the beginning of spiritual life to the highest stages of spiritual life. So the first 7 verses are connected to sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, which means devotional service being practiced following rules and regulations. Now, the first 2 verses, as we've covered, they cover the nisheta, things that you need to avoid, verses 1 and verses 2. We need to avoid the urges, the 6 urges. We need to control our urges, and we need to avoid negative association and negative habits or things which will destroy our bhakti. Then verses 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 speak about positive things, viti or pravriti, those things which we need to accept, which will help us to advance and engage in Krishna consciousness nicely. So things that are favorable, how to associate with the devotees, how to understand who are more advanced devotees, not seeing the faults in devotees, the glories of the holy name or the benefits of chanting the holy name. And now tonight we get to verse 8 and 9. So verse 8 is describing and discussing rag marg. There are 2 types of bhakti, which Rupa Goswami speaks of. Rag bhakti, rag marg bhakti, or rag, what we call raga nuga bhakti. You might have heard of this term. This is described in sadhana bhakti in the Nectar of Devotion. Chapters 1 to 14 cover in Nectar of Devotion cover Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Chapters 15 and 16 describe Raganuga Bhakti. 17 describes Bhava Bhakti, and 18 and 19 describe Prema Bhakti, which is our goal. So this concept of Raganuga Bhakti, it's within sadhana. It's a type of sadhana. So we need to understand it. What is it? Because sometimes devotees, they hear this term, but they may not exactly understand what it means. So Raganuga, rag means, the actual word means color. Color, rag. Just like when you dye something, then it becomes colored. Like in India, they always throw everything in dye and then it becomes colored. Sometimes the dye washes out and colors everything else in your washing machine or your other clothes. The rag, that's called color. So rag means color. It also means it's like attachment. In other words, it washes your whole consciousness. So, yeah, the context here is attachment. So, rag means something which colors your whole consciousness. Attachment. Because when you become attached to something, it permeates your whole consciousness. Yeah, when we become attached to something, then it just takes over. Everything becomes, our whole consciousness becomes full of the thing that we're attached to. So rag atmika refers to Krishna's eternal associates. Atmika, like atma means soul. Atmika means, rag atmika means like their whole soul, their whole consciousness is just permeated with their particular type of attachment they have towards Krishna. So as we know, Prabhupada will actually speak of tonight in the purport, there are 5 principal rasas in relationship to Krishna. 5 principal relationships you can have with Krishna. So when you're situated in one of those relationships, then it fully permeates your consciousness. It fully takes over your consciousness. That is called ragatmika. So rag anuga, anu means to follow. So raganuga bhakti means when we begin, we become more advanced in Krishna consciousness, and we begin to meditate upon and follow in the footsteps of the eternal residents of Vrindavan, the Krishna's eternal associates, his Nitya Parikas.
So anu means to follow.
Yep.
And anuga is it following the footsteps of?
Yeah. Anuga means a follower. Rag anuga means a follower. So someone who follows in the footsteps of those who have rag or attachment to Krishna. So sometimes devotees, they say, well, you follow Vaiti, you follow the rules and regulations for a period of time. And then after you've finished following, then you begin to practice Raganuga Bhakti, where you become more spontaneously attached to Krishna's servants. But it's not exactly like that. It's somewhat mixed from the beginning of our devotional service, our Krishna consciousness. What's an example? An example is the first day you may attend the morning program at the temple. So you move into the temple. You join one of the ashrams, or you start coming to the temple and you go to the morning program for the first time. So the first time that you come to the morning program, what takes place? You chant the Tulsi prayers, for example, the prayers to Tulsi Devi. And when you chant the prayers to Tulsi Devi, we chant them in Sanskrit, so we don't actually understand the meaning. And we may understand exactly what it is we're saying. You actually analyze it. And the first day you walk into the temple, you're saying, "Oh Krishna, beloved Krishna, I bow down again before you again and again. My desire is that you make me an eternal servant of Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy upon him, you make them of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me eternal residence in Vrindavan, so that I can engage in the service of Radha and Krishna. Please engage me in the footsteps of the followers." So these are the prayers. First day we move into the temple. So we may be following them in the context of Vaiti. In other words, we see it as a rule and a regulation. The deity, Tulsi Devi. You have to bow down before Tulsi. We may not understand exactly So it's from the very beginning of our devotional service. We're following Vaiti, which means rules and regulations. It's mixed with rag, with spontaneous attachment to Krishna. So both things are there from the very beginning of our spiritual life. Can everyone still see me? Okay. Can you ask them to say if they're on the internet? So at this point in time, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, you can hear me. That's the main thing, as long as you can hear me. We'll try to get the video back on. So with Raganuga Bhakti, from the very beginning of our spiritual life, we're doing both. We're connecting to the rules and regulations, but we're also, from the very beginning, being encouraged and taught to develop attachment to Krishna. Does it make sense, this concept? Okay. So it means that from the very beginning, we're learning to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. So this is from the beginning of our spiritual life. Okay. So in our Krishna consciousness, we need to understand what the goal is. And that's what's being explained in this book, in the Upadeshamrita. That's what's being explained in the Nectar of Devotion. All the Bhakti Shastras in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is what is being explained, that we need to develop this mood of following in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. That's from the very beginning of our spiritual life. Of course, it will take time for it to fructify or to develop or to permeate our consciousness more. So that's what's being spoken of tonight. So, does it make sense? You can't see me? No, you can't see me. No.
I think it's the wind.
No, it's not the wind. It's they jumped on. It's okay. There's nothing I can do as long as you can hear me. That's the main thing. Unfortunately. Yeah, that's what happened.
I know this one's no one's on this
Yeah. Okay. So maybe the video will come back. But at this point in time, it's not there. Let me just try this for a second. You can see me now? Okay, good. I've come back on. So, we'll read the actual verse. Does everyone, are you following the points that we're describing? Okay, good. That's good. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to always be engaged in Krishna's business. Right? So we have to train. This is the beginning of spiritual life. Savopadi vinimuktam, tap paratvaina nimalam, rishikena, rishikesha, sevanam bhakti uchyate. We have to learn to engage the senses in the service of Krishna. By engaging the senses in the service of Krishna, they become purified. Then, as the senses become purified, when we hear and chant about Krishna, then that will purify the consciousness further. And then we'll begin to remember Krishna in everything that we do, right? And in all our words, our thoughts, and our deeds. So in the beginning, we need to engage our senses in the service of Krishna. We need to do service. However, Gurujan Prabhu has pointed this out many times. We can engage our senses in the service of Krishna, but if we don't hear and chant, right, we will become weak in devotional service. right? And we've seen that again and again, right? Devotees, they do so much service, but they're lacking the hearing and chanting, right? And then their minds take control. As Prabhupada says, the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. That's why we must hear and chant in conjunction with doing service. Prabhupada said we need to have the ISKCON sandwich, which means in the morning we hear and chant. During the day we do service. At the end of the day, like we're doing now, we come back together and we hear and chant about Krishna. Right? That's our system. Because in the verse it says, the essence of all advice. I mean, this is a powerful statement. Yeah, Rupa Goswami is saying the essence of all advice. Like all the advice that you can get. This is the essence of it. Is that we should utilize our time 24 hours a day in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. Right? That's the essence of all advice. Right? To continuously engage in service to Krishna. And then it said, in this way, one should reside in Braj and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. So Prabhupada explains that if you can't externally reside in Braj, then within the mind. That's why we go to Vrindavan. That's why we go to Mayapur. That's why we go to Puri. Why? So by going there, when you get back here, you can think about those places. Yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my mind is Vrindavan. So when you're not in those places, you can think of those places while doing your sadhana. And then gradually, you learn while chanting and hearing to absorb your consciousness in Vrindavan continuously. Right? That's the goal of Krishna consciousness. And then to begin to contemplate Krishna's eternal servants, their particular moods in their service. You contemplate that and you begin to follow that. That is the essence of all advice. And then it says, one should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So as you become more advanced, you will become attracted to particular devotees, eternal associates of Krishna, in a particular mood, as the friends, as the parents, or as the lovers of Krishna, or even possibly the servants, or even neutrality is possible. Generally, the higher three rasas are found prominently in Vrindavan. We were at the Japa retreat, the Holy Name retreat, over a month ago at Govardhan in Vrindavan, and I think Giriraj Maharaj might have said that Prabhupada once said it takes 50 years to perfect your chanting. So it takes time to perfect our chanting, to learn to meditate on the eternal residents of Vrindavan and meditate on their mood while chanting, while doing our devotional service. So this is advanced devotional service. This is what we're aiming for. Is it clear?
This is just, so that's just looking at the bigger picture of things. So you're talking about Vrindavan and attachment to certain particular, relationships. What about then, because we also have to meditate and also with Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So what about developing the different relationships in his pastimes where it's a bit different to Vrindavan, but...
Yeah, okay, it's a good point. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says we can have one form when we become perfected in Krishna consciousness, one form in Krishna's pastimes, one form in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. However, all the devotees in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are in Dasyaras. They're in servitorship. And this is Rupa Goswami, who is in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, instructing us how to meditate on the pastimes in Vrindavan, which is what Lord Chaitanya also came to teach us. Lord Chaitanya never said, meditate on me. He always said, meditate on Krishna and Vrindavan. But those who, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you can meditate on both moods and then you can
because you can form, like, I know my own self, I have particular attachment to particular acharyas, like followers of, not even Lord Chaitanya's time. So then, it's still, but there's still, it still derive some of the same because of their mood and their, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Narottam Das Thakur, like, or Hari Das Thakur.
Yeah, so that's the same thing. That's following in the associates of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, who is an associate of Lord Chaitanya, he says that by diving deep in the ocean of the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will come up on the shore of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So that's our methodology. Okay. Could everyone hear that? You can understand that? Yeah, it's good. No, it's good.
Kind of digressed off.
No, it's not. It's on point. But I'm just making sure these guys can, as long as they can, everyone's keeping up with where we're going with the conversation? Yeah, they are. Okay, it's good. No, it's good. It was a good question. Okay. So then, page 74. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. This is Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. I was actually listening to one of Prabhupada's disciples the other day, and he was saying that he explained the Bhagavad Gita in a very beautiful way. I'd never heard it explained like that before. The Bhagavad Gita is extremely deep. Sometimes we think, it's because Prabhupada said it's ABCs. It's not actually ABC. It's actually very deep and very advanced. And one of Prabhupada's disciples was explaining, and I never thought of it before, was this is the nice thing about being a devotee. It doesn't matter how long you've been a devotee, you always learn something new. And even Prabhupada used to read his books. And Prabhupada said he would get realizations when he read his books. Even Prabhupada was reading his books and getting realizations. You always learn more as a devotee, which is amazing and wonderful. So I never heard this before, but this sannyasi he was explaining. If you look at Krishna's pastimes, when he spoke the Bhagavad Gita in Kurukshetra, he had already been there previously and met the Brijbasis. So when you go to a place, what happens? You get memories of that previous place. So you get memories of what you did there the previous time you came. Like every time you go to Dalesford. But I mean, it's true. It's a good example. Every time you go to a place you've been, you'll always remember that particular pastime. So Krishna has gone to Kurukshetra. And what's in his mind? The time when he met with the Brijbasis. Yeah, he met them all again. So that's in his mind. He's gone there. Everyone else is preparing for battle. And Krishna's in a very deep state of consciousness. So he speaks the Bhagavad Gita in that state of consciousness. So he says, whatever state of being you remember at the time of death, that state you will attain without fail. And this is what Rupa Goswami is saying here. If you learn to train your mind to think of serving Krishna, following in the footsteps of Krishna's eternal associates, if you train your mind to do that in your sadhana, then at the time of death, that's what you will do. So it's something we have to train our mind to do. Is everyone following so far? Okay. Halfway down. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. Now, interesting in this context of what Prabhupada's saying here, this book came out. Remember I said when we first started studying this book, The first message they got in Germany when the book first came out, but when they had to translate it, was the book was only for the sannyasis, which in one sense is true. But then the next instruction they got, Prabhupada said, print 100,000 copies and distribute it to the whole world. So the book came out, and the devotees started reading the book. And then it says here, you have to follow in the footsteps of a resident of Vrindavan. So Jamuna Devi, who was one of Prabhupada's leading disciples, every day we sing the Govinda prayers, and she's embedded into the history of ISKCON. So she said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, are you that resident of Vrindavan? She asked Prabhupada, it says that we have to meditate on a resident of Vrindavan. She said, can we meditate on you? Prabhupada said, yes. Because Prabhupada knew his eternal relationship with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada said, I think we were mentioning this last week, that Prabhupada said that your eternal relationship with Krishna will be revealed to you within your heart by your spiritual master while you're chanting Hare Krishna. That's the path of revelation. While chanting, the guru within your heart will reveal your eternal relationship with Krishna. That's our process. Page 75. In the transcendental realm of Brajadam, one should serve the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, with a feeling similar to that of his associates. One should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices, executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when one is a siddha purush or a spiritually perfect soul. Page 75, halfway down. So this verse which Prabhupada quotes here, Seva Sadhika Rupena. This particular verse is when Rupa Goswami discusses in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the Nectar of Devotion, which we'll study after the Nectar of Instruction. When he gets to the 15th and 16th chapter where he discusses Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, Rupa Goswami, he only gives 3 verses about Raganuga Bhakti. This is one of them. What is Raganuga Bhakti? It's here. It says, Seva Sadhika Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chatrihi. Siddha Rupena, Siddha Rupa means your eternal form. Sadhika Rupa means the form that you're in now that you will practice your service to attain your perfected form. So in the Sadhika Rupa, we meditate internally on our eternal relationship with Krishna, and gradually it will be revealed in which rasa we are situated. And then we will begin to meditate on that, and that will take us to our Siddha Rupena, to our eternal relationship with Krishna. It is an internal process, right? Our practice is internal, it's not external, right? We don't dress up as a gopi externally, right? That's called sahajya, that's called cheap. It's cheap, we don't do it like that. Internally, we meditate on it, right? And then gradually it will become manifest. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented on this verse as follows. Now, we also said in the first week that Rishikesh, one of Prabhupada's disciples, he was associating with Prabhupada's godbrothers in the Gaudiya Mutt while Prabhupada was not in India. And they were studying things related to Krishna's pastimes, the Ashtakaliya Leela, the eightfold daily pastimes of Krishna. And then Rishikesh, he said to Prabhupada, can you comment on this? Can you write something? And it's interesting because that's when Prabhupada wrote this book, this commentary. He didn't write something about the eightfold daily pastimes of Krishna, but he gave us this book, which is significant. This was Prabhupada's commentary, where he gave us this to direct us how to attain the more esoteric realms of Krishna consciousness. So now Prabhupada's guru is about to comment on this verse. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented, one who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name form qualities and pastimes. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly, remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities, under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instructions regarding the cultivation of devotional service. So sometimes devotees ask, when will I know when I'm qualified to meditate on Krishna's Ashtakaliya Leela, his eightfold daily pastimes? The answer is when your gurus give you permission to do so. That's when you do it. As Prabhupada said, you have to be trained under an expert devotee. So you need your gurus to give you permission and guidance. Right? And then you know when you can do it. So you need guidance. Otherwise, what is the danger? The danger is you may delve into Krishna's conjugal pastimes. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says if you approach them prematurely, the rasa that's within Krishna's pastimes will turn into virasa. It will turn into material lust. It will increase your lust instead of decreasing your lust. Because when you read them when you're qualified, the Bhagavatam says your lust will decrease. When you read it when you're unqualified, your lust will increase. That's how. One time a life member came to Prabhupada, him and his wife. Prabhupada and his disciples were staying in his house in India. And after Mangalati, the husband and wife, they were a little elderly. They came to Prabhupada's room after Mangalati and they said, Swamiji, please read to us the Rasa Leela, Krishna's pastimes. And Prabhupada said, no, it is okay. I'm not qualified. And they were, Indian people can sometimes be pushy. So they kept insisting, no, Swamiji, please. Prabhupada kept saying, no. And finally, Prabhupada said, you may be qualified to hear, but I'm not qualified to speak. And Prabhupada would not entertain. So in other words, Prabhupada's teaching is you have to approach it when you have the permission and guidance of your gurus, not senior devotees. So then, now Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is about to go into a very deep explanation of process of remembering Krishna. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasha. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavasta, the stage of remembering, recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi, or spiritual trance. After Smarana Dasha, or samadhi, has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called Sampati Dasha, the perfection of life. Okay, so you may not have understood all of that because it's technical, but the basic premise or the basic understanding is that it just means that your remembrance of Krishna, when you get to an advanced level of bhakti, and while doing your sadhana, you're remembering Krishna's pastimes, it deepens, the absorption deepens and deepens and deepens. That's basically the gist of what's being spoken of here. But it's quite technical. So you don't have to worry about that on your exam because it's too technical. But, by reading it, Prabhupada said, by reading these things again and again and again, I was reading this today, preparing for the class, and I began to understand it better. So Prabhupada said, read again and again and again his books and discuss it with others. And it will begin to more deeply enter our consciousness. But the basic understanding is that the more we hear and chant and remember about Krishna, the deeper our absorption in him will become, which is the goal of our life. Then Prabhupada finishes the purport. He says, this is called Rag Anuga Bhakti. Rag Anuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service, can be executed in Shantaras, when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or the stick or flute in the hand of Krishna, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. So if you have a desire for any of these things, then that is Shantaras. In the Dasharas, one follows in the footsteps of Krishna's servants like Chitrak, Patrak, and Raktak. These are Krishna's servants. Their service is in the morning. They have different services, but they live in Nandagram. And in the morning, when Krishna is getting dressed, they come and help Mother Yashoda dress him. That's their service. And it says in Nectar Devotion, Krishna hits them on the head with his flute. Yeah. They're trying to dress him and he keeps tapping them on the head like. Keeping him on. This is Chitrak, Patrak, Raktak. Yeah. This is your God. Raktak. I had a nice friend called Raktak.
So I think I've met someone called.
Yeah, he passed away. He was my age. Yeah, he passed away. He had a heart attack in Brindavan a few years ago. He lived in Brisbane. Very nice devotee. Lived in Brisbane. Flew to Brindavan. Got to Brindavan. Was only there for a few hours. Had a heart attack.
Is that in the morning program?
Maybe just after, yeah.
Started getting sick in the morning program.
Yeah, he started sweating and then he had a heart attack. Just got to Brindavan. Spine. Like Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. He was flying from, I think he was in the Polish tour and he was flying to China. And he stopped at Govardhan for a week. And then while he was in Govardhan, he left his body. was just passing through and Krishna took him. Birth and death are all auspicious for a devotee. Nothing is inauspicious for a devotee. In the friendly Sakya Ras, one can become a friend like Baladev, Sridharma, or Sudama. Interesting, Prabhupada says, like. You can become a follower of these people. Prabhupada says all the top positions are already filled. Right? You can't become Mother Yashoda. You can't become Sridharma. You can only be a servant of the servant of the servant. Right? One time, Gurujan Prabhu said, when he meditated on this, he thought, do I really want to go back? Because we always want to be in the high positions. Like in ISKCON, sometimes we all compete with each other to get the high positions, right? So you have to accept, if you go back to the spiritual world, all the high positions are taken. You can't get any of the high positions, they're all gone. You can only be servant of the servant of the servant. And Gurujan Prabhu said he had to really think, do I really want to go back? Because we always think, I'll serve Krishna as long as I'm got one of the high positions. As long as I'm significant and important and recognized, well paid, and well fed. We have conditions, but to go to Goloka, you have to be unconditional. Whatever service you get, that's it. You're satisfied. It's actually harder than what we think. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers was commenting at one of Prabhupada's disappearance days in Vrindavan a number of years ago, very advanced godbrother of Prabhupada. And he said, what is all this talk of gopi? People talk about the gopis and so what is all this talk? You don't even understand what it means to be a servant. You want to say, I want to be a gopi, I want to be a follower of the gopis. It's not that easy because you have to become an unconditional servant. If you can't selflessly serve the devotees in this world, Krishna will never let you go to Goloka because you're not qualified, right? If you don't have selfless, unconditional service to the devotees in this world, you won't get into Goloka. It doesn't matter how much you appear to be meditating on the gopis. A very important point. It's not so easy, actually. It means we have to give up our ego. In Vatsalya Ras, characterized by parental affection, one becomes like Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And in Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Srimati Radharani or her lady friends, such as Lalita and her serving maids, Manjaris, like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. Very powerful purport. Interesting, because this is what Prabhupada gave us, this book. This was his response when he heard that his godbrothers were speaking about Krishna's eternal pastimes. He gave us this. In other words, he's telling us, if you want to become qualified to enter Krishna's eternal pastimes, which we should, you have to perfect all the instructions and teachings in this book. It's very interesting. It's funny, just the other day, I read another sannyasi commenting on this book. It's like when you study something and suddenly, you start getting all these instructions coming from Krishna. Very profound. Very profound. Okay, any questions on verse 8? Now verse 9. Now 9, 10, and 11. Next week we'll do 10 and 11. Verse 9, now we're talking about the goal, the sadhya of Krishna consciousness. Right? We spoke about the sadhana, how to get there. Now we're talking about what is the goal, right, in the final 3 verses. Sadhya. Yeah, sadhya means perfection. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathura, Puri, is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radha Kund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarine prema of the Lord of Gokul, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha Kund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? So, Prabhupada comments within the purport about these holy places. Now, there is a, how do you call it? Going up one stage to another. There's a hierarchy. Yeah, hierarchy. It's a spiritual hierarchy. The spiritual world is differentiated. We are not an undifferentiated philosophy. That is called Mayavad or impersonalism. Undifferentiated. You can't differ. Everything is one. We're not like that at all. My Guru Maharaj was speaking on Brihad Bhagavatamrita, right? And he gives a very nice series of lectures on Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and he said, the spiritual world is full of anger, jealousy, pride, transcendental envy, competition. Right? It's not a peaceful place. It's a spiritually variegated place. There's so many emotions which are there. Many of you would fit in very nicely to that place. So it is a spiritually variegated place, the spiritual world. And Vaikuntha is where Lord Narayan is worshipped. You see on the first canto, the front cover of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada gives us the picture of the whole spiritual world. We see there is the Goloka planet, which is 51% of the spiritual world, and the other 49% is the Vaikuntha realm, right, where Lord Narayan lives, right? Vaikuntha planets. Now, in the Vaikuntha planets, you read in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which was the first book written by the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, by Sanatana Goswami. It explains to us the journey of Gopal Kumar, who traveled up to Goloka Vrindavan. On the way to Goloka Vrindavan, he passed through Vaikuntha and he met Lord Narayan. And when he saw Lord Narayan, he saw that Lord Narayan was the same color as Krishna. You see up here, Krishna is bluish black. Lord Narayan is also bluish black. Same as Krishna. So when he saw him, he called out, "Hey, Gopal!" Because he thought it was Krishna. And then everyone in Vaikuntha said, "Shh. This is the Supreme Lord, four-armed Narayan. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You don't just walk up and say, 'Hey, Gopal.' You say, 'My Lord, the source of all, of everything. You are the greatest personality. How can I serve you?' You don't just say, 'Hey, Gopal.'" They said, "You should go to Vrindavan, his other place." So in Vaikuntha, that is the mood. Vaikuntha, the mood is awe and reverence. So Mathura is said to be more intimate. It is described that Dwarka is not mentioned here, but it describes that Dwarka is perfect, Mathura is more perfect, and Vrindavan is most perfect. So here we're hearing about Mathura. Why is it superior? Why are Dwarka and Mathura superior to Vaikuntha? Because there is less awe and reverence in the pastimes. Devotees have a relationship with Krishna. It's not based on awe and reverence. There's some awe and reverence, but it's mixed with sweetness. But then it says here in this verse, Rupa Goswami explains to us, superior to Mathura is Vrindavan. Why? He says because this is where Krishna performed the Rasa Leela. Right? The Rasa Leela is Krishna's highest pastime. Sava Rasa Sa, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami writes. It is the essence of all the pastimes. In Vrindavan forest, Krishna performs the Rasa dance and so many other pastimes. So it is superior to Mathura because there is no awe and reverence in Vrindavan towards Krishna. That's why it is superior to Mathura. Then, Rupa Goswami explains, superior to Vrindavan is Govardhan. Govardhan Hill. And you feel that when you go there, you feel that. The sweetness just escalates when you go to Govardhan. You know, we used to do retreats in Varshana, which is where Radharani lives. And we used to drive to Govardhan after the retreat. We go from one retreat to the other retreat. And I remember a number of times, as soon as you get near, I mean, Varshana is so sweet because it's where Radharani herself lives. And it's in Vrindavan, and Vrindavan is so sweet. But when you get near Govardhan, suddenly all the sweetness just escalates. Right? It's just like the sweetness compounds. It just increases. That is Govardhan. Even someone like me, anyone can understand it. Anyone can perceive it. I took the devotees to Vrindavan recently, and at the end of the trip, I always say, where was your favorite place, or what was your favorite experience? And a few of the devotees said when we walked around Govardhan Hill, that was our favorite, one of our favorite experiences. And it's one of my favorite days of my year when I can circumambulate Giriraj. Something very special about it. So Govardhan, why is it so important? Because it is a place where Krishna, when he lifted the hill, all five rasas were simultaneously interacting with each other in the presence of each other at the same place at the same time for 7 days and 7 nights while he lifted the hill. So it's a very special, very powerful place, Govardhan Hill. But then it says, even superior to Govardhan is Radha Kund, which is situated at one end of Govardhan Hill. It actually describes that Govardhan, you know, like when an animal, like a lion or something, like kind of lies down. Yeah, or, you know, when they just sit, yeah, they kind of like go down like this. Just not pouncing, but just sitting like that. It says Govardhan is like that. Govardhan Hill is like watching all the pastimes of Radhakund and Shyamakund. It's right at the end. So he's watching all the pastimes of Radhakund and Shyamakund. Even in, I think it's Lalita Madhava or Vidagdha Madhava, Srimati Radharani talks to Govardhan. And when she's separated from Krishna, she speaks to him. And I was saying that to the devotees when we were there. I said, you know, speak to him. You know, reveal your heart to him. He is the oldest and the wisest of all people, of all personalities. Speak to him. Reveal your heart to him. So, Radhakund and Shyamakund, why are they the supreme of all places. Because Radhakund and Shyamakund is the place where only the conjugal pastimes of Krishna take place. And we understand that the conjugal pastimes are the highest of all of Krishna's pastimes. The only people who can go to Radhakund and Shyamakund are Krishna, the gopis, and on the Shyamakund side, because Shyamakund and Radhakund are next to each other, on the Shyamakund side, Krishna's Dwadasha Gopals, his 8 principal cowherd boys, they can be there, but they can't go to the Radhakund side. They can't have pastimes at Radhakund, only at Shama. So that is why Radhakund and Shyamakund are considered to be the highest of all of the pastime places. And next week, when we study the final 2 verses, 10 and 11, we'll hear a more detailed explanation of the special position, the supreme position of Radhakund.
At Radhakund.
No, he can't enter. He stays on the outside and keeps the unqualified people from coming in. No, he stands on the outside.
In Vrindavan, he goes.
Gopeshwara as well. No, outside of the rasa dance. He never dances with Krishna.
He's there, but watching from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, like when we walk in,
Yeah. Wasn't sure if he was in there or he's
No.
on the perimeter.
perimeter. So on page 80, Prabhupada said, advanced devotees prefer to reside at Radhakund because this place is the site of many memories of the eternal loving affairs between Krishna and Radharani, Rati Vilas. So that's why the advanced devotees, they like to stay at Radhakund. And you have to be advanced to stay at Radhakund, to actually stay. You have to be advanced because the advanced devotees like to stay there. I mean, I know myself, I'm not an advanced devotee, but I know that I don't get any feeling like I get when I go to Radhakund, even on my level. There's nothing, I don't feel anything else anywhere like I feel the way I feel when I'm at Radhakund. So even for those of us who are not so advanced, there's something that's there that you can't feel anywhere else. Why? Because the Prabhupada said there are memories. Maybe we don't know what those pastimes are. But, we should learn those pastimes so that when we go there, we can remember them and something will filter through from the spiritual energy, the Daivi Prakriti, the spiritual energy. But that is the best place to chant. That is the best place to remember Krishna's pastimes. But to stay there, I visit there, but to stay there, that's a whole nother thing. And someone who does stay there, you're very respectful to that person. Very respectful to that person. Especially if someone's born there, lived their whole life there. And they tie these threads on our wrist whenever we go. Sometimes I say to the devotees when we go to Vrindavan, and we go for a whole month, but there's a time we get to Radhakund and there's rich basis, they tie these on our wrist. So I say to the devotees when they do, I say, this is the whole purpose of my trip. This is the whole purpose of my trip. Just to go there and get the rich basis to tie this on because, it's by their mercy that we can even come to these places. And then after they tie it on, we dip it into Radhakund and Shyamakund, Ritakund, and that way, and then we pray, please let me come again. That's our mode. Then Prabhupada says, this means that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, it is stated that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first visited Brajabhumi, he could not at first locate Radhakund. This means that Mahaprabhu was actually searching for the exact place of Radhakund. So Lord Chaitanya, I mean, he sent the Goswamis to discover the pastime places, the Leela Stans, but he himself discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund. And you can go to his Baitak, his actual sitting place. And you can go to Nityananda Baitak, where Lord Nityananda actually sat. And Janava Baitak, where Janava Mata, Lord Nityananda's wife, sat. And it's an extremely powerful place. Prabhupada says at the end, who then would give up Radhakund and try to reside elsewhere? No person with transcendental intelligence would do so. The importance of Radhakund, however, cannot be realized by other Vaishnava Sampradayas, nor can persons uninterested in the devotional service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radhakund. Thus, Radhakund is mainly worshipped by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it is considered to be the highest place for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Chaitanya. Next week, we will hear in verses 10 and 11, the final two verses, we will hear about the glories of Radhakund to an even greater extent. So next week, we will do verses 10 and 11. I will record the first 4 verses. Thank you for the reminder. And the week after that, we will do a revision class, and then you'll have your exam not long after that. So, I've been back for over a month. Okay. Devotees are laughing in happiness and ecstasy. Okay. We'll see you next week. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thank you all for coming.
Keshava, Hare Krishna, I have a question if you have time.
Yeah.
Keshava, I've heard that Vrindavan and Mathura are the same, but from what you're talking sounds like it's different.
Vrindavan is inside what we call Mathura Mandala. So it's in the greater area of Mathura, just like you have Melbourne as the city, and then you're living in Albert Park or Port Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like Melbourne Mandala.
Okay.
Or the greater city of Melbourne. And then there's like, so Vrindavan's in the Mathura Mandala.
It's like a
area
suburb.
of Mathura.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a village within the area of Mathura.
Okay. So Krishna.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
So Krishna spent his childhood in Vrindavan, but he was born. Where was he? Because it says that he was born in Mathura.
No, he was born in both places simultaneously.
Uh-huh.
I'll explain it to you in more detail another time, but he was born in Vrindavan and Mathura at the same time. Then when Vasudev crossed the river, when he came and he put the baby Krishna from Mathura on the bed, that form merged into the form that had appeared in Vrindavan. And then he stayed for the first 10 or 11 years in Vrindavan.
Yeah, got it.
And then when he went back to Mathura, that form came out of him and went back to Mathura.
Okay, thank you.
So they're the same. Yeah, I have to explain it in detail. I won't do that right now. But Mathura and Vrindavan are not different, but they are different, as explained in this verse, because Vrindavan is more intimate. It's free of awe and reverence. Mathura is not free of awe and reverence. It's mixed.
Okay, thank you.
Sweetness and awe. Yeah, we can go into detail. Yeah, but not right now.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Anything else? Okay. Baki. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you. See you on the weekend.
Yeah.